calling Ronnie. All right. All right, at this time, I'd like to call this budget work session on Tuesday, June 21st, 2022 to order, and if you'll please stand for the invocation.
Let's pray. Most gracious Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you again for a day that you bless us with. Lord, just ask you to be with each and every one of us now as we go to make the final decisions in the county. Lord, just ask to lead and guide, direct us in every way. We pray that it be pleasing to you, Lord. Lord, just be with us on our way back home. Keep us safe and just wrap your angels around our cars, Lord. Ask forgiveness if we fail you, and in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Are there any corrections, updates, or anything to the agenda? All right, I entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion approved.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we'll get right into this updates from County Manager Shaver.
So we don't have a tremendous amount since our last meeting on the 16th. We switched a few things after that meeting. I sent you all an email after that meeting about the body cams, the $70,000 that we discussed about that, trying to clarify that, and that's an annual lease price for those, and that those are going, we had a list in the email of who's receiving those body cams with the officers. Did you all get that as far as be able to look over that? And then another thing, you got a packet today with a couple other budget sheet replacements for your budget. Some of the changes in that is due to, we received a tremendous amount of grants after we put the budget together, which is a great thing. And some of those grants were added in, are reimbursable grants. So in doing that, some of those were not added into the revenues because that money is coming back in, has to be put on the revenue side. So that's been updated in those departments to reflect that, and that's a total of over $642,000 worth of reimbursable grants, almost 643, which is an increase in the revenues, and that reduces that general fund contribution a little bit, so that brings your fund balance up a little. We looked at some of the numbers this week on sales tax numbers, and we've had an additional increase come in for that for the month of April, which is counted in. Right now, you're at a 26.93% over last year's sales tax numbers as to date, which is, like we said, probably not going to continue forever, but it is a good thing for this year considering you budgeted on last year's numbers and past years, and you've gotten that 26% increase. There was also an additional $247,774 in ad valorem collected since we had presented the budget. And then there was a $238,291.08 increase in the EMS revenues from EMS billing. I think from what Tracy said, they had caught some of that billing up and received some extra in there, so that's quite a bit for that department. That would bring your estimated fund balance up. When we originally had looked at this, we're looking at about 18.7%, but that's going to bring us to 20.72 even after we allocate from the general fund the amount that's in your budget. And that is after the appropriation and assuming that the appropriated funds from last year are used, which we don't think we're going to use anywhere near all of those, which means you would technically have more fund balance than that, but that's just a conservative estimate, 20.72. So that's a good news to report. We're thinking more along the lines of a little lower than that. So that's a positive for sure. Another question I received about this meeting is about the opioid settlement funds. I want to give you, I handed a handout of those that looks like with the green chart on the front. We have received the first payment of those funds, what's considered the spring payment there. This time they're divided out into two payments. From now on it'll be an annual payment. What we've gotten so far is $154,383.73. You'll see a budget amendment coming up on Monday in the consent agenda for budgeting that money into that special account that was set up for that. And behind that information is a little more information as far as how the funds are distributed and the amounts you're going to get. You're getting a little over $4 million over an 18-year time period. There are really specific ways that you can use those funds, and a few of you might be able to speak a little more to that as far as I know that you're on the VIA.
Yeah,
board.
I'll be glad to talk a bit about that.
It is good, and we expect our summer payment to come in sometime July or August. They're going to release that money from the Treasury in July, And the way this timeline worked, it's about a month after they release. They're probably end of July, we'll have that additional 339, 520.
So we've been having these, through VIA has facilitated these meetings with this Substance Abuse Steering Committee. And there's about 20 people on there. And some meetings, there's 10 or 15, sometimes there's 20 people there, but it's all of, like, the community paramedics, Jonna Cheek from the school system that does the mental health, all of the mental health providers are the people who are doing, like, can't think of their name, Daymark and all of, Insights there. There's all of those providers come or send a representative, and then Evelyn Lemons has been coming from Stop Overdose Stokes, and Tammy Lilly, who has some houses for addicts that are getting clean and stuff. So it's just a wide variety and range. We've invited people from the judicial system to come, and I think Judge Southern's going to try to come. The last meeting we had, we've been meeting once a month, and we had a physician from VIA that came and just talked about the medically assisted treatment and bringing that to the county, which is what VIA spoke to us about. And what they were hoping is through this committee, there could be a slow rollout of that, where we could get a lot of community buy-in and understanding from the community about what that would look like. And so that committee would like to have some input into, like, maybe making suggestions to this board about how to best spend some of that money. There's I don't know if we want to get into using the money to build some kind. There's a place in Catawba County. Do you remember the name of the county? They said Chatham County, where there's they build these tiny houses for people in recovery, but it's they have treatment, they have small group meetings they have to attend. Some of them are on medically assisted. It's something worth looking at to see, because that seems to be a big thing that we're hearing out of these meetings, is the lack of housing for people that get clean to come back to and they rent these houses, so they have to have a job and everything to get these tiny houses and stay clean, pass drug tests and stuff like that. But that's just one of the many things. We talked about an app where people could download an app and put everything on their phone with all the resources, and other counties have it. I need to look up one and send you a link so y'all can see what we're kind of talking about. But it would be a one place where people could go to find out a lot of information and a lot of resources. So I don't know if this board wants to earmark any of that money on this budget, or we could do a budget amendment as we go if that committee has some strong recommendations. They want to come and present some stuff to this board at some point. So, but they're doing some good work in that committee. It's very enlightening. I can send y'all an invitation if you want to come and see what it's about. Anybody?
Second allotment, you're going to have a little over $493,000 just for this first year. The first year's the largest, of course.
Yep. It's good to see a lot of people in the same room trying to really put some thought into and what's working other places and what's not, because it's amazing to hear, like some of the things that have been tried. And this guy, I mean, honestly, and I know y'all in law enforcement can speak to this too. I mean, what we're seeing with some of these newer fentanyl-laced meth with fentanyl and stuff, it's hard to get people off of that stuff. It's not anything like the recovery and therapies that have worked in the past for drug addiction. It's really a whole new ballgame. And one thing we talked about at the last meeting was just the lack of providers that even know anything about some of this new stuff, like getting people treatment. And medically assisted is the thing that they're saying is having the most success right now. And then again, if people don't have transportation, if they don't have it where they can get it and have therapy and have the ability to get jobs and stuff, it really works together when there's the wraparound services that they talk about to help these people. But we've got some really good, competent people in those meetings that know what they're talking about. So that's my update on that.
Anybody else have anything else on that? Want to share or interested in? The only other thing that I've got is in the back of your packet with the budget sheets, there's one page that has the comp time that we spoke about at the last meeting, where we figured it on the over 75 hours and the cost of that to start that process, and then continue it ongoing, of course, as people earned over that time to pay out. And the board asked us to look at a 3-week option as well, because now we're currently doing over 240.
Is that on the sheet, the three?
It's on the very back. It should be the last sheet, budget sheet in the back.
Okay.
So this has got out to the side, we left the 75 in there as well from last time, but we also added the 3-week payout, which will be the 112.5 hours. That about cuts it in half as far as what the initial payout would be to get everybody to 112.5. And then that would be after they get 112.5, just like now with 240, they would get paid out each pay period over that amount for their comp time payout. So it reduces the initial startup of it if we went that direction. And it puts more time in there as far as that. And then, of course, they would still get the 112 if they retired, left, anything like that, as far as a regular time payout.
Okay. Do board members have any comments on this or preference on which way you'd like to see it?
What do you recommend, Shannon? Which one do you?
I personally like the 75, just
Okay.
because I think that affects more people as far as people that are really in working. If you get 75 comp hours, you've worked quite a bit of overtime anyway to get that.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are taking a vacation, you're going to reduce that right down to 37 and a half. It's going to take a while to build back to 75. But I feel like that we are being more helpful to the employees by paying them out over 75, and they're getting their payouts more often than they would at a larger rate.
It's not that much difference.
It's not that
really.
much difference in the
Dollars.
getting it started. And then,
True.
like I say, we have to budget that money either way, because if people leave during the year, they have the full comp time payouts from overtime. But I prefer the 75. I think that more people would benefit from that and appreciate that.
I'm good with that too then.
Madam Chair, I'm good with 75.
Okay. All right. Well, let's figure that. That should help take care of that problem. All right.
And I called Dr. Rice today and just gave him kind of an overview of what we were looking at doing with the school current, transferring those funds from ARPA and, leaving that up to them on using that 500 and the 1,000, I've got the exact total, but for them out of their unappropriated fund balance. And he said he would certainly present that to his board, but I told him I'd let him know once our budget was finalized which way we went with that. But right now it looks like we might be putting in the $843,905 from our ARPA to add to school current. I just wanted
What did
him to
he
kind
say?
of have a heads up. Very, appreciative of anything additional to get them closer to their whole number. So that was, and I don't know what they'll do as far as their board on appropriating the rest of the funds, but I feel like that goes a pretty good measure in getting a lot closer than we were.
Oh, yeah. I think so. Board members have any more comments or questions about that?
Nope, I'm good with it.
I'm good with it.
I don't have a lot else unless there's anything that you need from me, as far as we didn't have a tremendous amount of things to change the last time. Like I say, we just put those revenues in those grants. Other than that, we don't really have any other new changes or information. It's pretty straightforward from there, unless you all have questions.
Is the sheriff here for, you have anything?
No, you just, if there's any questions.
All right. board members have any questions for Sheriff?
I was gonna just ask one, Shannon sent the thing about the body cams being a 1-year lease. Is that the standard way most officers do that, or?
It's a 5-year.
It's an annual lease, $70,000 is this year's amount, and then next year could be 70 more, right? Or less, give or take. Come on up.
Does it have options in it, or is it just, does it automatic renew, or how do you
I've had the
go?
opportunity to meet with 3 different companies about this, and
Yeah, come up to the microphone, Warren.
I had the opportunity to meet with 3 different companies about this. Those, the companies, that, as far as the numbers that we're giving you there, it's an automatic 5-year quote.
Mhm.
So that's basically divided by 5 years. So all 3 companies required a 5-year commitment, and then they had different parameters of how that starts. Some had a down payment, and then the remaining balance divided by 5 years to whatever. So that 70 for the company that we liked of the 3 that we met was pretty consistent that year, unless for some reason you added additional things such as added more body cameras, added more of this, more of that. So for the most part, 70, if we were to stay the same level, that would be consistent for the 5 years.
Is that the standard way you do this, lease them instead of buy them? Is that what most
That's
police
correct.
departments
So
do?
the 2 of the programs that I talked with gave us the option, it's built into the program, that as their body cameras improve in technology, then we will automatically get one upgrade to that 5-year process. And that's built into the price already. So if they came out with a newer body camera, throughout, obviously technology changes so fast, that we would be eligible to turn in those and get the newest version.
Is that how the one you got recommended works?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So one time during the 5 years?
That is correct, yes, sir.
Okay.
And the good thing is again, under the lease program, we have no responsibility for maintenance. Battery goes out, they send us a battery. One gets broken, they'll send us another one free of charge. We incur no expense in the maintenance side of it, and they give us 1 or 2 body cameras to keep in the closet in case one gets broken.
Okay.
And we put it into circulation, we send the broken one back, but that keeps us from having to wait on one to show up.
And it's cloud-based, it doesn't require us to have any extra data storage as
That
far
is
as from an
true.
IT standpoint.
One company was a standalone computer, 2 companies were cloud-based. This one that we're looking at here is cloud-based. So it's just a matter of going and having your credentials to log into the website and then categorizing everything on the cloud.
Then at the end of 5 years, you'd probably get new cameras from whoever you go for the next time with, right?
In theory, if everything's working smoothly, then obviously we would look at probably just continuing a renewal.
Yeah.
I guess the way that lease works, it's possible you get new cameras in 3 years if the newest technology changes, right?
Correct.
According to that lease, they might upgrade them even sooner.
Yes, if supposedly the one company we looked at was working on a new product, and we would be eligible for that in 3 years to go ahead and get the newest product with no additional expense.
One last question is, do you know off the top of your head how many cameras that is in the program you guys got?
So requested was 45 body cameras
Uh-huh.
and 27 in-car cameras. Basically, that covered your uniform patrol fleet as far as the body cameras.
And how many cars? The ones that sit on the dash?
Yes, sir.
Oh, you got those too, huh?
Yes, sir.
That's for stops, traffic stops and stuff, right?
But yeah, the other good thing is in the one that we looked at, they come and professionally install it, and they'll teach our guys how to do it. That's part of the program. And so when we swap cars, they'll teach our guys. But it has 2 cameras in it, one to the front and one behind the cage in the vehicle, so that you're recording what's happening behind the cage for the protection of the agency and the officer there, what the person in custody is doing behind the cage.
That's not all the cars, all the vehicles though, right?
That's all your marked units.
All marked units, okay.
That'd be your patrol units, and basically just working out.
Yeah. Okay, that's all I have.
So your criminal detectives would have the body camera, but not the vehicle stops and stuff.
It's cheaper than purchasing them outright, because I think what you were speaking of about that quote that Sheriff Marshall was saying, that giant quote, was if you purchase them and then you have to worry about the
Storage itself and all.
storage and the upgrades and the software updates and all those things that
Definitely
might
been
come
a
with
big
them.
topic was the storage and the retention requirements and things for evidence and stuff like that to make sure it's admissible in court. That has changed over the years with the cloud concept. Before you used to have redundant towers and storage and gigabytes and this and everything else. Technology as it continues to improve has helped to make that more complicated.
When are we looking to put this in place?
A couple of things that we would be looking at doing is, of course, making sure that there's a policy in place of how that works, so that everything stands in court like it's supposed to. The company is basically like just give us the green light. They gave us two just examples to try, and so we had a chance to try this for a couple of months to see how that works. So we kind of got the gist of the process, and it's just a matter of working with them to get the installation done on the vehicles and stuff like that. So I guess a couple of months by transitioning time to get them on.
You have to do in-house policy changes, is that this
We
unique?
don't really have one because we don't have
Yeah,
body cameras.
does anybody help you with that, or you have to figure it out yourself? Or?
Sheriff, we've worked with a lot of, I guess, a company that does policies. It's Smith & Rogers writes policies for sheriffs and police chiefs across the state. And so we have their model policy to give us a jump off point.
And just be an internal policy for the sheriff's department, wouldn't go flow out into any of our other policy stuff, right?
Be just internally for our operations level to make sure that we're doing things consistently, so that everything's still in court and stuff like that. There's some record retention things, the non-criminal versus evidentiary retention requirements. If it's just your burglar alarm went off at your house and the officer goes out and walks around your house and then your house is secure, then there's no evidentiary value to that. So that can be purged in like 30 days to save your storage space on the cloud.
Oh, okay.
Or if you went out to an actual crime that took place, you may be required to retain that throughout the court process. I helped Shannon change her flat tire and the body camera's on. We're not going to retain that for any more than 30 days if her tire got changed well.
Makes
If it didn't,
sense.
you gonna hold it 60?
Yeah, you know how Shannon is, but we'll do what we can.
Anybody else have any questions? Do you think that what we're looking to do with the comp time should help with some of that issue?
Yes, I mean, you're looking across, this is not a local issue. This is not even a regional issue. This is a national issue. With everything that's going on in the media, with everything that you see online or whatever, law enforcement is tough to get people, and it's tough to keep people. And again, this is not just our office. We see this across the board. I talk to sheriffs all across the state, and they're having the same issue. I do think that what you have looked into providing for these deputies would give them a little more incentive to stay, and also beyond that, it costs money to train people. People here in Stokes County, these guys are already trained. They know the county, they know the people of the county, so I say they know it geographically and demographically. And so to be able to keep as many local guys as possible, I do think this will definitely go towards that. A couple years ago, you adopted the new salary schedule with the salary study that was done. I think that helped as well, and I think this is just something else that would really go a long way to make sure that we retain quality people. We want to make sure we don't just have deputy sheriffs, we have quality deputy sheriffs, because I think the public deserves that.
Yep, I agree with you.
Sheriff, other than the body cameras,
Yeah.
is our deputies equipped with up-to-date equipment, being the thing that happened in King? I mean, granted, the police officer got shot in the head, but there again, we'll make sure they well protected, got everything they need to do their job.
Yeah, so we're constantly, I think in the last year, we bought, I think it was 16 body vests, bulletproof vests. We just purchased 7 new patrol rifles. We have a handful of handguns that we are cycling through to make sure that we keep them up to date with the advances of technology, because law enforcement is just like anything else. It evolves, and so we're doing our best to try to keep up with not just a local standard, but a national standard.
So it seems like anymore, don't nobody have a problem taking a shot at y'all,
And that's one of the things, just anecdotally, I want to add about the body cameras. There's a couple different reasons that we really feel like it's necessary to go to them. And one of them is, as Chief mentioned, they're great forms of evidence. So when you're on a scene, like maybe what happened a couple weeks ago, you've got evidence instead of sometimes you know who you're looking for. I guess is the best way.
Well, I mean, you can look back on the news in the last month, you've had 2 instances of highway patrolmen that's ended up shooting people. I mean, one of them was a seatbelt violation. Why the guy pulled a gun to shoot him is That's another question, you know, but
It is another question, and it's the main reason that why we keep trying to find these improvements to make sure that our deputies are safe, because if they're not safe, they can't come help you when you call 911. And so one of our main priorities is making sure that they have what they need to keep.
and that body cam he had on showed every bit of that.
Right.
From the time he stepped out of his car till he went to that truck, what happened?
And I hate we're in that position. I really do. I hate.
It's sad that-
But it's as they say, the times are changing, and we've got to make sure we keep up.
That's true.
Thank you.
I got a question while you're here, since we don't get a chance to ask the questions as often. So what kind of, do y'all just train periodically with these active shooter drills in the schools? I know when I was on school board, y'all did stuff like that, but you know, after what we saw happen in Texas where they stood down and didn't go after the guy for a period of time, some more information came out on that today.
I haven't seen the days.
Today, some real high up law enforcement in Texas called it an abject failure but there were issues with, and this is what I want to ask you about that was mentioned in that article, is the radios weren't working inside the schools. And they were not getting all the up-to-date information, like kids that were calling 911 and saying he's still in here shooting, you know, and kids calling 911, asking for help from inside the building. But the police chief did not have his radio with him for whatever reason, but even the other officers, they were saying their radios weren't working in the building, but the Border Patrol agents that joined them later could get some coverage in the building. I don't know, they must have had a different kind of radio. But, you know, I know, like, some of our schools, you can't get a cell phone signal hardly inside of Poplar Springs, some of West Stokes. I mean, so what would be, how would you address that from your standpoint?
So in having SROs in all the schools, we've not run into an incident that I'm aware of where we've not had radio coverage as far as the cell phone, I guess. You know, we operate off a local tower here instead of a cell phone tower.
Right, different. Yeah.
So to my knowledge, we've not run into that situation. To answer your first question, yes, we did train shooter scenarios. We're actually in the process of planning a training right now. That'll be coming up pretty soon to do that with as many of our deputies as possible. You know, and that's another. I'll give it another prop to try to retain people. Because again, that's another element of training. You go through that process when you're in basic law enforcement training, but it's like anything else. You know, if you don't practice it, you might forget it. So yes,
all of our schools are different and laid out different. And I know when I was on school board, I think we provided keys to all the schools, like a master key. That was one thing they said happened down there. They couldn't get in the room or whatever. Or waiting on somebody to bring a key or something, which just blows my mind.
It's likely the board did provide that, and so that's still in place.
That's good. I mean, you know, training inside our actual schools in the summer when they're out, I think that's invaluable to actually be in the buildings, and let's just pray that we never have to use that training.
I've answered some of your questions on the radio part. There's very few spots in our county that we don't have capability of using our radios. They're really limited. We about know where the spots is at.
There's certainly a few low line areas,
Yeah.
but you're talking, especially if you're in a vehicle, you're talking about a matter of seconds.
Yeah.
Yep.
No. Yep.
We've got a pretty good radio system.
That's good. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate y'all coming and being here to answer questions.
Absolutely.
For sure. I had a question about, Commissioner Morris mentioned something about paying the hospital board, the board that meets, the operations committee or whatever. And do you have information of what other boards or committees get paid? I mean, just like I was talking about that VIA committee, that would be a lot if we tried to pay all them for that. They're meeting monthly too, but that's almost 20 people that are on there. I don't know.
Off the top of my head, planning board, of course, that's different though. That's paid. Any outside meetings that you all attend as elected officials, you're paid, like you're paid for you would turn in your VIA appointment, but I don't think other people on that board are paid. We have which we've only met a couple of times, the broadband committee. Those people are appointed by you, but they're not paid for those meetings. They're citizens that have volunteered, or like some of the community members, like Jimmy Flight's on that board, and Cindy Tuttle. Another committee am I thinking of? JC, yeah, the animal group that we meet
Advisory board.
with. The shelter planning committee, no. JCPC is no, unless, so no, those are the ones if there's some, DSS board and health board, but that's different. They're paid from we don't pay them from the governing body budget. They're paid from those particular places. I don't know if that's something you want to look at across the board or how you want to consider that.
Board members have any input on
If
that?
I'm hearing right, your boards is getting paid, the committees are not, is that correct? Is it by the way it's named, or?
I don't think it's really, it's just how it's always been done. I mean, I know like DSS board and health board's always been there for a time. The board was the DSS board and the health board. So that's different, but I think it's just how it's always been done. I don't really know that there's a protocol for it as far as a board versus a committee.
They have different authority or more authority.
Yeah, the DSS board has more authority and the health board has more authority than a typically committee. Typically committees are just like animal advisory board. They're advisory boards usually. They come and advise boards to do things. So there is a different level of what they're able to do. And those are typically across the board not paid committees other than elected officials that serve on them that are paid for outside meetings.
It seems like to me that board or committee falls more into that category of advisory. Because they're not like the day-to-day operation of the hospital. They're more or less giving advice on how
I
best.
think it just needs to be consistent.
Yeah.
If we're not paying other boards, then as long as we're,
And
thing is, we're asking these people to volunteer their time, and then now they're paying $5 a gallon to drive up to
Oh, yeah, that
meet
is.
and all that stuff. I mean, so.
And we even had this year on the JCPC, which I used to serve on and Amber's on now, they were even looking to use some of their allocation dollars to pay somebody to be their recording secretary because nobody wants to volunteer to do that job because everybody on there has other jobs and that's a commitment in itself to take on to do that, and they didn't end up doing that, but it is getting harder to get people to just volunteer their time, like you say, because gas is expensive and they've got other commitments that make that harder. So if that's something that maybe you wanted to look at, we can maybe try to get a list together of all the kind of what it would cost you if you paid every
We'd have to be
meeting committee.
consistent.
That would take a little time, and it would, we could do it during this year sometime and bring it back to you.
Yeah.
That'd be fine
That way you're doing the same thing for
to
across
look
the
at
board.
it and pray gas eventually goes back down.
Most folks now, they go to work, they come home, they stay.
Oh, absolutely, I get it, yeah.
That's true.
And we want to keep people willing to serve on things like that, so if we need to do something, it's a minimal amount usually, but if you collect it all together, of course, we want to get a number, but we can look
Okay.
into that and get something.
Do that this year.
Yeah,
Good thing is, at least it's local.
yeah, that's true,
That's
mileage.
And one of the committees I gotta serve on, I gotta go to Rhode Island, so I mean.
I served with Y Vetting for Head Start. I drove to Boonville. I just kept a mileage log and they just reimbursed me for my gas. Not my time, but my gas.
We can
Yeah,
compare one to
that'd
the
be-
other,
yeah.
a flat rate or a mileage.
Speaking of that, in the school board's budget, I noticed they were increasing their per mileage rate. What's ours at?
State went 58 cents. 58 cents.
Well, the federal government sets that, don't they? Or-
58 cents per mile is what
What
we're
did the
at.
school board raise theirs to 58 cents?
Possibly, I don't know.
I don't know. I need to look back and see. I just remember seeing it in their budget, increasing the per mileage rate.
Ours was 41 for a long time, and then it went to 58.
What else do you need from us to make this work?
Huh?
Anything?
No, I don't think anything. I mean, unless there's anything that you want us to change or add or take away, as far as that goes, I mean, the newest, I think it's a positive. The fund balance has gone up, estimated fund balance to 20.72 from our original estimate. And then we've gotten everything moved like requested from the ARP line items, and the only thing we're gonna be going out for financing for is gonna be the courthouse for the 6 million for that one. And if there's anything else that you want us to look at changing or doing, and I think this $24,371.11, if we pay out this comp time overages, we would try and go ahead and get that done this budget cycle and do it next pay period, because we want to start the new budget with everybody sitting at 75, so that wouldn't be a budget item for this budget.
Yeah, that'd be good.
So,
Shannon,
yes.
just to be sure, as we get ready to finalize this, I mean, we're right at the finale of this budget, and as we will bring this forward on Monday for the ordinance to complete and approve the ordinance, what is I know at the very beginning your recommended budget was $49,118,782. So what number will be on that ordinance Monday night for approval? Is that the number 49,118,782?
We're gonna have to pull a Julia.
No, hold 1 second.
Let's hear that calculator going. Oh, you got it. Lisa.
Changed anything today, right? So we should just be.
Sorry.
Usually we hear that calculator just,
No, Lisa didn't bring her calculator. So we should be looking here.
no, we get her for
This should
Christmas.
be our total here. Yeah, so we're,
But that's after we moved all the art.
right. after we go
Now I
on.
don't see that.
So you're looking, if you look on page 4 in those, budget sheets from today, and you go down to the general fund, 54,338,366, and if you add the school current expense to that, the 14,854,299, that's the total budget of 69,192,665.
Say that again.
Right there on page 4 at the bottom. The one she handed out to us before the meeting.
Okay. All right, hold on. One.
Very far across, and right there.
The county portion would be 54,338,366.
I'm sorry, Shannon, you cut out on me. What did you say?
It's on page 4 of your sheets, on your expenditure summary.
Okay. Four. I need your glass.
It's the county portion is 54,338,366. Then the school current expense is 14,854,299. Those totaled together for your total budget, 69,192,665. And that's the current expense that you're budgeting here. Now, you do have the ARPA money up in that line item for the additional funds, but that's not coming from.
This is not counting the ARP,
Not in the school current line item, it's not.
not in school. Okay.
Okay, so Shannon, are you saying when you bring the ordinance amount that we have to approve on Monday at the, will it show 54,338,366, or will it show 69,192,660?
I'll let you answer that, because you're doing the budget ordinance.
I'll have to look at it, I am not sure. You've got to include your school. don't
It'll
you?
be the
It's gonna
total.
be the total on it.
Yeah, it'll be the total.
Total.
Yeah, because when you approve the budget, you're gonna approve the total budget number of the $69,192,665. That'll be your budget ordinance number as well.
Okay, I just want to make sure that if there's anybody looking in on YouTube or anything today, they will have the number that we're proposing to bring to us on Monday. And you're saying it's going to show up as 69,192,665, correct?
Correct. And that difference from when we first brought it to you is we had some things still left under finance that we moved to ARP, which now show up in the big number. They increased the total budget, although you're not actually using county funds. Technically, they are county funds, but they're ARP funds. That does increase your budget number, but won't increase your
What's the
debt.
total of ARP funds in it?
Is the back page, page 93.
Was $6,455,517.
Yeah. Basically, if you add 2.4 to that for the allotment that you have dedicated to broadband, that's your total ARP fund. So in this budget, you've got $6,455,517.
And even with this, you're saying the way it's looking, that the fund balance will still be sitting around 20%.
20.7.
So it's nearly 21.
We rounded up, it would be 21.
You have to budget the total amount of all these projects in this current budget.
Right.
Then when you finance them and spread it out, it could probably reduce the budget next year.
Yeah, it could. And like I say, it really, we're being conservative, but it doesn't look like we're going to use a tremendous amount of what you used last year to balance. And that'll help your fund balance too.
And the fact that we can maybe not have as many budget amendments going forward is
We hope,
a
yeah.
positive thing too.
Yeah, we're going to look at the final number this year and then see how we can stay way
I
under
mean,
that.
it's going to be a year to kind of
Yeah.
tweak things.
We've done very accurate, I think, revenues and expenditures as far as based on what we've had last year, and even updating to the point of looking at new numbers now and seeing what's there, trying to budget those correctly. And, things come in for every week, something new comes in the budget process that you have to tweak or change, so it's a...
Grants, reimbursable things and all that stuff.
We've received a fair share of grant funds over this last couple of weeks, which is great.
Yep.
Really good. So,
Next year we'll be getting over ARPA.
yeah, exactly.
The ARPA fix will be
But
over.
hopefully, in next year's budget, we won't need some of the big ticket items that we're doing this year, and we won't have any new debt set off coming from any of those other than the $6 million, which is hopefully going to be a low interest, long-term USDA. So it will help us moving forward for a little while until some of that, we recover from some of that when it does happen. And we're still figuring conservative on the sales tax, so even though that's still coming in at a higher rate, that's good too.
Hope it stays that way. People keep buying gas while they already ain't gonna be spending that money on nothing.
Yeah,
I know.
this is true, so.
I got a couple quick questions too.
Okay.
Just a couple increases I was curious about. On environmental health, we went on professional services, went from 9,000 to 74,000. Is that, do y'all remember what that was, or if not, maybe just let me know.
I might have to grab our big budget workbook where they would have given a justification for that. I'm going to assume it's some type of, now I know they got contract money for a position.
Yeah.
It's just a temporary position
In order to stay caught up.
yes, that might be that dollar amount.
That's probably what it is. That
But
looks
I can
like.
confirm that, but whatever it was something that
Okay.
made sense to do. Yeah, that may be it.
Yes,
It was
I'm
either-
professional. We've done that before, so that's,
Yeah, they-
that's probably what it is.
They got some funds for that, and they've been trying to hire a part-time person for that, so that's got to be that professional services increase.
And the only other one that we went on Superior Court went from 10 to 25,000. It says miscellaneous contractual services, juvenile retention. Y'all remember, what would that have to do with?
That's where we have some juveniles that go to Raleigh, to the state, because
Oh,
we're
is
not
it?
housing them, and we
Have
had
to
an
pay
increase
extra.
of juveniles.
Okay.
And the actual numbers from this past year, we were way over what we
Way.
budgeted last year. So we
Yeah.
just budgeted what we pretty much spent in this year.
Oh,
Hopefully, we
okay.
wont have that kind of year again, but if we do.
You have to, juveniles, if they're incarcerated, have to go to somewhere and we have to pay.
Pay
Yes.
the state.
And it's a large daily rate. It's a big rate.
On these ARPA funds that we're buying
Yeah.
these things with, we have multi-years to spend that, right? Like 2 or 3 years, right?
The belt might fit.
20, no, I think it's 2026. Yes, 2026.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Got a lot to do.
Yeah.
When are you guys gonna move veteran services? Have you decided about that yet?
As
Or?
soon as we've had a few other things to happen that IT's got to be involved in as far as here. So as soon as they get a little bit of free time, because they need to be able to move everything up for him so he can get rolling, and they just hadn't had a chance to get that part done yet. So
Elections will stay where they're at until the new building's
Yes.
done, right?
yes,
Or,
I hadn't wanted to ask IT yet to do that because they've had a few other things that are a little more pressing to work on. So once they get that part, we'll get them to move over in services.
when is there, I know they have put out there for a new position.
It closes tomorrow on the
Okay.
22nd, so all the applications they've gotten, then they can schedule. some-
Have they got good applications?
I do not know. They're all going to HR, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope they need they need a person in there to help them. They've got a large workload.
Yeah.
It's for NIT.
So, yeah, they've got a.
That
seems like we're-
position's been open since
Last July.
last summer, yeah.
Last July. It seems like we're always calling them for something, so they definitely.
They didn't
need a
post it till.
additional person.
Last question is, we don't have anything in capital reserve now, right? Looks like that's kind of cleaned out.
Yeah, I think that capital reserve. I've got so many new pages in here, I've got to pull my,
But you increased contingency, so I guess,
we did an increase in fuel contingency,
yeah.
that, which hopefully is enough. So, yeah.
Got what page that was on?
Did you find your
capital
capital reserve
reserve.
sheet?
I was looking at contingency, he was talking about that, sorry.
No, it's good. I don't think there's.
82, I think.
I think when we increased the contingency, we didn't do the capital reserve.
Yeah, that's fine. You can just look at that each year and decide if we need to or
Yeah.
not.
And if something happens, which I mean, we're just have to come and ask for the money to fix it.
Fund balance,
It's
yeah.
an emergency. Which there's some things happening in this ARP money too that are gonna be some big things that, or will be some HVAC things that need to be worked on and some things like that, some roofs, so that'll be some, moving in the right direction for some preventative maintenance instead of always waiting until it breaks.
All I have, Madam Chair.
All right. Anybody else have anything? So we're gonna wait and vote, because,
You can do it however, but typically, and what you did last year and what you've done in years past is, last year, you officially voted in the budget meeting and approved because Commissioner Mendenhall made the motion, I don't know who seconded, but you approved the budget and the tax rate, because you have to set all those things too, which is all staying the same. And then at the next meeting in June, which will be our Monday meeting on action, you approve the budget ordinance.
okay.
It's the pleasure of whatever you all like to do, but that's typically how you do it.
Okay. So, anybody that wants to make a motion on this budget for today, and then we'll have the budget ordinance to approve on Monday? I don't know how you want to,
Shannon, was there a
Word it.
special way it had to be read? I can't remember.
I've got something if you want to
Bring
look
it
at
on.
it, because I want to be sure that when we approve it, that we make sure we're noting what the tax rate is, noting what the fire
Okay.
taxes are and all that, so.
all right,
if you-
well, we'll
and
do
you've got
it.
the total budget number up there on your sheet, the 69 million. Yeah. I've just got some notes in case so we don't miss anything on
Page 4.
page 4.
Yeah, I think the main thing is that we've got the numbers. I think the main thing is us including the tax rate and everything.
Got that there. So if you just pretty much add that number in, you can put them there. Well, that'll give Lisa and Tracy time to work on the budget ordinance for Monday. We'll have that on action.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the fiscal year 22-23 budget for a total budget of $69,192,665, including the current expense with a 62-cent tax rate reflecting the current appropriation of the tax rate being 31 cents for the general fund and 31 cents for the school current expense, with no property tax increase and the fund balance estimated at 20.72%, with the fire tax rate being 8 cents for King, Walnut Cove, Rural Hall, and the Fire Service District. And the school/protect fund will remain at 4 cents.
All right, there's the motion.
Second.
Second, all those in favor? I need a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion with adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Good work. Thank y'all for